My name is Wael Shawky. I'm an artist from Egypt. I live between Alexandria, Egypt and Philadelphia, USA. Very happy to take part of this experience in Korea. With my solo exhibition that it's really presenting one of my new productions that it's called Love Story with other work that I've created before, and the entire exhibition is concerning the topic of myth and the relationship between, let's call it, our metaphysical reality and physical reality. When I was trying to think of this exhibition, I was trying to link between previous work I made before, which is called Al-Araba Al-Madfuna, and another work I made last year called Hymns of the New Temple.
وبوجود الحب كان من المنطقي أن تخلق ربة الأرض غاية.
They're completely two different works, but both of them are focusing on mythology in a way or another, in a different languages. Al-Araba Al-Madfuna is more focusing on Muhammad Mustajab, one of the Egyptian writers who died recently, that it's really somehow also connecting between two different worlds for me. This spiritual, metaphysical world that from his point of view, he's translating this through his background that it's coming from Upper Egypt. And also Al-Araba Al-Madfuna is connecting between Muhammad Mustajab's story and my personal experience in a village in Egypt called Al-Araba Al-Madfuna. I think because it's the most cliche ever, actually. It's the most cliche idea about this. Because, I mean, for me also, art is also a myth. We are dealing with something that it's really not, we cannot call it even tangible. So it's more about the idea itself. And love also has this same concept. So in my work, Hymns of the New Temple, it's actually about Greek mythology, which is the first time I work with Greek mythology anyway. But I had to go through a lot of readings to understand how to make this film. Again, it's full of love stories. In Al-Araba Al-Madfuna also, it's a different type of love story.
أوصيكم باقتناء جمل.
It's a story here that we hear that the leader of a tribe is dying and he's giving an advice to his people. So as a respect, his people really follow his advice and change their whole life based on his sayings. So I find that this is also another form of love story. That I find it also very important to translate the origin of certain places and different cultures. So I decided to use 3 stories. One of them called The Rabbit Trial.
길가의 소나무에게 어찌 생각하나?
Which is, I find it very interesting because it doesn't have any love story in it, but it's the fascinating part about it is the mechanism that you can trace between the characters inside the story, which is, for example, in this case, the tiger and the traveler. This type of love story that it's happening, and the need for the trial and the need for the third party to judge between them, and how it ends in the end. This is really also very interesting. One of the other fairy tales that I found it also very interesting is the golden axe and the silver axe.
산신령 다시 헛못으로 슥 이번에는 쇠도끼 들고 나오더니
하지
그럼 이 도끼가 네 도끼냐 파무꾼이 반기며 이 도끼가 제 것입니다.
Where you see clearly the idea of morals. I mean, most of these types of fairy tales, it's really about morals. And how you see that this is also the myth about the love story, where is the good part in, where is the good party in the relationship. But it's also not in a direct way. So I think the audience have to go through the process of analysis to connect between what does it mean love story and the fairy tale golden axe and silver axe. The third story that I decided to use is actually it's called the silkworm, which is maybe this is the one that really we see in it a love story, but in that time it's something really between a princess and a horse.
아바마마 이제 저를 말과 결혼시켜 주십시오. 그게 무슨 소리냐 말과 결혼이라니.
So again, it has this like ideal fantasy about love that it's behind any type of barriers, and I find it really interesting to try to connect between all these three stories.
옛날로는 산골 마을 마음 착한 한 나무꾼이 호러머니와 사는구나.
I always like to work with topics that I don't know about, and I'm really enjoying the fact that I'm working here in Korea with a language that I don't know, and even with culture that I don't know, and try to translate this culture, and again to play the role of a translator, as I'm always trying to be, and try to use culture as a medium, in that case not as a final goal. Having this music in my work, I was just fascinated by hearing this music for the first time. The pansori was like, for me, is incredible, and it brought back to me many other types of music that I worked before with, like Fijeri, for example, from Bahrain, that I worked with many times, and also the Qawwali from Pakistan that I also worked with before, and many other types of traditional folk music. I think using pansori here is trying to connect between the idea of the topic of this exhibition, which is really belongs to mythology, and our materialistic life. So for me, pansori is this translation for our myth about love. So I decided to make a new work called Love Story in a different way, which is really connecting with fairy tales. The screen we have in this installation, actually it's coming from a folkloric dance in Korea that it's using, let's call it lions, dogs, animals, that it's in that case, instead of seeing this in a format of only eating the bad spirits, it's actually dancing on top of a pile of washing machines, fridges, and really something like belongs to like the waste of capitalism and our modern life. And I find this, for example, this relationship between these two animals that are dancing on top of this big waste. Again, it's like the relationship between our metaphysical world, which is in that case presented through the animals, and our realistic, materialistic world that it's presented through these appliances. So it's a story. You need just to connect between all of them. I think there is also a narration. I believe it's just a different type of relationship. Instead of seeing the Pansori woman singing one of the fairy tales, we see this action that it's happening in between these two creatures and a pile of washing machines. I just believe that this connection also is extremely important to try to even to break the idea of the exoticism. So to remove yourself from this idea of the exotic image of culture again.
오늘 밤 공주가
Actually, this is something also very important to me. It's similar to the way I'm using sometimes marionettes or masks in my work, and sometimes also working with children, which is always belonging to the idea of erasing drama from my work and trying to work with, in a way, to concentrate on the topic itself, the music, and really not to see at all any type of melodrama or acting skills coming from the character. And especially when you make the inverted image, you invert the light and the color and changing the color completely, but you still see that the minors, the details that was never important becomes the primary, that becomes the most important actually in the film. So this shift, I think, allows us to make different types of analysis that we used to do before with the usual images. Well, I thought of having this space more into an experience for the audience, that they are traveling between all these fairy tales and this musical format. But also I like a lot to work with different mediums. Even part of this installation is this metallic green color of the walls. Different mediums for me each medium has its own limitations. So what you can really read from films, you cannot really read it from objects. And this is also happening with other things. So many times I like to work with objects next to the films, and with these two different limitations you can make different types of understanding for this topic. For me, this hay wall is more into the idea of shelter, but it has a cut in it that it's really, maybe it's a little bit, you feel it's a bit painful, and it's something like really has a decision that it's coming from human being. So it's also something for me like connecting between something very organic and something a little bit industrial. So Al-Araba al-Madfuna is a village in Upper Egypt in an area called Al-Balyana. One day was the capital of Upper Egypt. One day, of course, in the ancient Egyptian history. I personally was invited with some friends to go to this village and to experience very, very weird ritual, which is really happening a lot in Upper Egypt this time. Many people believe that underground there is a lot of treasures, and they use, let's call them, just to make it close to our audience, they call something like shaman, that is able to see underground and connect with the spirits, and where they connect with the spirits lead them how to dig to reach the treasure underground. And they dig, and they used to dig maybe for 20 years. So there are tunnels underground. For me to translate my experience about this world, again, about this metaphysical, spiritual world and our materialistic world, I was thinking of this format that I used.
أن يجلسوا. همس واحد باكيا أوصنا يا أبانا.
Kids are speaking, but in the voice of adults. And what you hear is one story, but what you are seeing is a different story, to the degree that you cannot even compare between them, but they are really happening at the same time. And maybe this can remind us of our body and our soul, that we don't know what is it, where is it. So I decided to use the story by Muhammad Mustajab, that it's speaking about a tribe and camels, and donkeys and mules, and to connect this story with another visual that is really, the visual here in this film belongs to my experience, a visual that it's usually even far away from the cliche visual that we know about this text. This is really my idea of translation, of how you translate the topic. So in that case, you see my characters walking in the streets of Pompeii, and they are telling us the story of the world creation, but from the Greek mythology point of view.
الصمت. في البدء لا شيء. كيوس أول من جاءت للوجود، سبقت كل خلق وكل خليقة. هي اللا شيء الذي بدأت تظهر منه الأشياء. انبثقت من هذا اللا شيء نيكس، وهي ربة الليل الحالك، ومن ثم إريبوس، وهو رب الظلام العميق والعالم السفلي.
So we hear from the beginning, since starting from this entire universe is nothing, silent, and then we start to go gradually until we reach Zeus. Still, all the story that we see in this film is really connected to Zeus and his relationship to Io.
وظهرت آيو، امرأة من نساء البشر، هي ابنة الملك إله النهر إناخوس. كانت كاهنة في معبد الربة هيرا، زوجة كبير الآلهة زيوس. تخيل، لقد وقع زيوس في حب البشرية آيو.
And Io in that case is Isis, the Egyptian goddess. So I found that this connection also is very important, how to connect between the Greek mythology and the Egyptian ancient mythology. When Romans conquered Egypt, this is in that case maybe my interpretation, they needed to make Isis still a goddess, but someone has to be above Isis, which is becoming in that case Zeus. In the Egyptian mythology, Isis and Osiris are brother and sister and lovers. But in the Greek mythology, it's actually Isis is the mother, Zeus is the father, and Osiris is only the son. I believe it's something happened clearly to try to still put Zeus on the top of Isis. It's very clear. And I like this a lot. I like this type of variation that it's happening in the same mythology.
خيانات وفساد وسفك للدماء. كلما توالت الأجيال ازداد البشر سوءا. الأبناء أسوأ من الآباء. الأحفاد أسوأ من الأبناء.
What I find it interesting about this film in the end, we hear also in the Greek mythology, Zeus in a certain moment find that humanity have a lot of sins, and he's not able to cure their sins. In that case, according to the Greek mythology, is to erase them completely and create new generation. And that is coming in the end of the film. In the Greek mythology, it comes with the idea of the flood, that we can also have it in other religions, of course in Islam also, and Christianity and Judaism, the idea of the great flood. But in our film, I decided to make it more like stars falling down just to end humanity. But that was the different interpretation. For me, making art is really a learning experience. In every project I make, I feel that I am teaching myself. I feel that I wouldn't know about Pansori, for example, without making this project. So involving myself in all these types of readings and practicing and translating, and I believe in the end this is what is making me comprehend life in a different way, and I feel this is really the point. Also, what I'm trying to do also is not to be good in making anything, not to be good in being a painter, not to be good in making a film. I think it's the idea for me is just to understand the topic and then translate it through different types of mediums, no matter what it is, no matter what, if it's music, I make the music. If it's films, I make the film. It's really the idea here is not to learn how to make music, because for me this is about everything. Once you learn how to make it, it's not art anymore. So it's always the process of trying to put yourself into the gap of my own ignorance, how to be inside this area where I'm running to understand. Running to understand and searching is the process of art, and this is what I'm trying to do.